Okay, welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Anchor Leg Podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Gushman, joined by my co-hosts.
Josh Hernandez.
Jaden White.
And Peter Mang.
And joining us today is a very special guest from Hamilton College, Nathaniel Taft. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Nathaniel.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm a first year at Hamilton College in Clinton, New York. We just wrapped up our season. Nationals was a couple of weeks ago, and just some training in the off season. Uh, long courses afoot for clubs, so just staying in the water, and you know, so excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you too. So, seeing as you brought it up in your introduction, I guess, give me a little pulse on how you feel your freshman season went, your first NCAAs, obviously, it's a very exciting season for you, I'm sure. A lot of big time drops, a lot of great placings at NESCACs and at Nationals. So, I mean, if you kind of had to sum it all up, what would your thoughts be on your first season of collegiate swimming?
Yeah, it just everything went so much better than I expected. Just the support from teammates and coaching staff and family and just everyone around me, professors included. Everything just went so well, and I couldn't have expected both the support all around the community and like just the hard work and performance. Everything came together at the end, and it was just so exciting uh, for the grind to get there.
Yeah, so I mean, if you don't mind, kind of walk me a little bit through your season. Obviously with these great results. I know, I kind of went back and looked. You are obviously more of like a 200 geared type of guy coming out of high school, and really made a lot of strides from the 50 all the way up to the 200 this season. I mean, big drops in all those events. When did it kind of really start coming together with you? Was this kind of something where you had a really good summer before you came to college and thought, hey, I got a lot of room to improve? Or did you kind of start, getting into some new training styles and, everything just kind of started clicking midway through the year?
Yeah, so things towards the end of my high school experience, things were definitely starting to ramp up in terms of competitiveness and in terms of like preparation for college swimming. Um, Especially the summer before college. I won the 100 long course freestyle at Connecticut Seniors, so that was an amazing experience, and that was just getting like the type of competitiveness ready and all that practice like down for everything um, that needed to be done in the college season. And now, I mean, you mentioned the whole season. Hamilton's in NESCACs, and we have a fairly restrictive training process in terms of out of season, um, wherein uh, we don't really have coaches on deck before like mid to late October. So it just resulted in a lot of kind of more personal team bonding in that the coaches would write sets, and we would be everyone who wanted to be there would be there, and we'd all put in the work because we knew we wanted to, even though the coaches weren't there to give us that type of feedback. But just at that point in the season, seeing everyone out on deck when it wasn't like specifically required was just such a good thing to have in mind when the season started, that everyone was already putting in the work when nobody else was looking and when it really wasn't even required.
I was gonna say, like, what you mentioned there is like really just embodies the D3 spirit. Everyone's here because we want to be here, and I think that's just really great to see that it's all, all around. Everyone's been giving very similar thoughts, and it's great to see, like, even without a coach, you guys can hold yourselves accountable and practice through it.
Yeah, that was just, it was such an amazing experience to come here and just like see the environment of training, even without coaches at first. And then in October, November, when coaches' practices began, everyone was already in a place where they were so ready, almost competition ready, because we've been training for a couple of weeks, ready for dual meets, even though we had a pretty long portion of time to kind of dial things in before the meets actually started, which was just really fun. Um, yeah, just like captain's practices went super well. They were a little more laid back at first, just kind of getting to know each other and finding out the groups we'd eventually get put into. Our practices get broken up usually into distance. So it's usually by distance. So I mean, I'm typically in the sprint group, so I met those guys pretty early on. Just grinding out some 25s, 50s pretty early in the season was a great way to like get to know them pretty well. And I mean, it's obviously the same guys I've been training with um, for the whole season. So just like starting those like relationships from pretty early on, those training partners, those like opponents at practices and that meets was just like such a great part of the season to be in.
Nice. So I guess a kind of question I want to ask based off that is, we kind of saw you take this large step in the second semester after you kind of got into the groove of the season. I know you mentioned NESCAC starts about a month later than the rest of Division III. So what kind of allowed you in the second semester to kind of get back in and just take off the way you did heading into conferences?
The first portion of the season was just such a big transition in like life, almost essentially, in that everything changed when I got onto campus. Like it was a really long period of adapting to college life, and even though my times in the first semester were getting still better, which was such an exciting thing to see happen so soon, I knew that when I got more focused and when I got more comfortable with this training style and with the coaches and every portion of life now, that things were going to continue to get better. I mean, just like starting on training trip, late December, early January, that's when things started to kind of get dialed in. It's when we were starting to get into really good shape. We had a few consistent months in the weight room. We had a few consistent months in the pool, and the time started reflecting that absolutely. And just like the feeling of everyone waking up on training trip and going to the pool down in Florida, and you'd expect it to be warm at 6 a.m. in Florida, but it's still low 40s. So we're all going through it together, but it's still like just the team building was enormous for getting prepared for that. This one kind of story that our head coach John loves to talk about was that it was one morning, probably halfway into training trip, when kind of the initial excitement had worn off a little bit. It wasn't all beach right then. It was we were kind of in the middle of it. We were going through it. It was just a sprint set in the morning, just 50s and 100s off push. And I mean, we lost the energy for a little bit. It got pretty brutal. And then it took one guy in the lane next to me just looking at me and saying, "I'm going to destroy you on this one." Like, and I'm a really competitive person, so I couldn't like take that. So, I mean, the next one, like we absolutely raced it. We were sprinting the entire way, just like harder than we had. That was the fastest split of that practice so far. And then we finished it around the same time, and it was until we left on the next interval. It was just us arguing over like, I beat you on that one, I beat you on that one, but in the best like familial way, almost like bickering between siblings almost. And it just kept going back and forth for the rest of that practice. It was us like back to back, just sprinting everything, trying to get that one up on the other person. And practice concluded, and we were terribly tired at the end of it. And we just knew that like we tied pretty much all of them. We were kind of 50-50 in our wins. And we just asked our head coach, "Can you time us for like a 50? Like we want to get one more of these off the blocks." Meanwhile, at this point, it's probably 45 degrees, windy in the morning. We step on the blocks, we're absolutely frozen. And we just grind out another 50. And it was so close. I think I out-touched him on that one. He'd probably disagree with me, but just that's the environment it is here. It's just that competitive nature that exists here, and that's always going to exist here. That's fighting for those like last few percent, that like 1% better every day, and knowing that if you don't put everything in, someone else is there to like kind of take it from you. So you have to like fight them back. You have to really put everything in every day. And that's what I started to understand going into second semester, that I needed to be out there putting everything in every day. And I feel like once I kind of nailed that down, results in the last few dual meets into championships, NESCACs and nationals, like the times kind of followed after just figuring out that kind of getting that energy into training.
That's super cool that you've been able to have that experience. I know we were all smiling as you told that story because we, probably all thinking back to similar experiences. But I'm really glad that you have that team environment, and I can definitely see how, getting pushed like that day in and day out could definitely contribute to a ton of your improvement. I'm super curious, like you talked about, that environment that you were in second semester that helped so much, and then you talked about, everyone at captain's practices getting dialed in this fall. It's a unique part of the D3 experience, that captain's practice in the fall where it's no coaches, and we're sort of back to that sort of experience now with this D3 dead season. Can you talk a little bit about either your experiences so far or some of your goals for the off season? I mean, what are you doing to really dial in for next season?
Well, I mean, it was amazing to see because we just had our school annual triathlon called Hamtrak. So for the last few weeks, everyone's just been continually training in the water. I mean, I'm still training because I was able to achieve times that put me in a place where I'm able to continue training for the potential of Olympic trials. But just to have so many other people there training for something that they're ready to push themselves for, which was this triathlon, that was just amazing to still have the energy there, even when, like, still just like captain's practices, like the reward might not be there of a meet or of like validation from times, but just to have everyone still there putting in the work, putting in the effort and the hours, when, I mean, finals are coming up and everyone would probably be in a better spot class wise if they'd spent those few hours studying. But just to have that environment still going on is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, we're doing basketball now. Our swim team, we have like basketball going on. Today we were playing, some people obviously were studying for finals, but I mean, I was there this morning and I was, putting it up for the Peter B. Lewis Prowlers, as my team is named. But I mean, it's nice even when you're doing other sports, the energy, the competitiveness of, like, a competitive sports team is always going to be there, and that's something I really liked. Tell me more about, since, we're on the topic of basketball, it's, off topic of swimming. Tell me more about what you do out of the pool. How do you spend your time at Hamilton, outside of swimming?
Yeah, well, I mean, swimming's obviously such a big portion of mine, of all of our lives. But just to have this Hamtrak triathlon going on, and it's on everyone's minds right now. I mean, I originally started swimming because as a little kid, I was a triathlete before I was a swimmer, and I only started competitively swimming because of how atrocious I was at that age, probably running through like a pond or something. Um, and as it got into actual swimming, I couldn't keep up. So that's when I started as a competitive swimmer. I mean, solely triathlons have fallen to the side as swimming has absolutely taken over my life sports wise. But just to have that still going on, I mean, I did the bike leg of a relay with three guys on the team, and that was just like an incredible experience. Obviously, everybody is still so competitive with one another, even though we weren't. I mean, only one in three guys who were doing it were swimming, but just to still have that environment of the competitive nature not going away, whether we're biking, running, or doing the entire triathlon, was just incredible.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like the dynamic of a swim team, that competitive nature that you talked about, how you guys are pushing each other in the pool on training trip, also sort of extends outward to these other activities that you do in the off season. And I'm super curious, just because you sort of hinted at like how big of a deal this triathlon is, like how much participation does this kind of get like campus wide? Is this just like a athletes only thing? Is this like a campus wide sort of deal? Like how, and where does it take place?
So this was absolutely not just a athletes event. I mean, we're a pretty tiny campus. We have around, I want to say, 2,000 people here, but there were definitely hundreds of competitors that showed up, which was just incredible. I mean, we have our spring sports away at NESCAC. I think track and field is at Tufts right now, but just to have like so many people still coming up and racing in sports, that some sports they do, some that they don't, some that they've been training for a few weeks, and some have been spending decades of their life uh, training to do that. But it was just have everyone come out was absolutely amazing. I saw professors racing, I saw alumni, and I saw just so many people I know and so many people I don't know out on campus just showing support and racing. And it was such an exciting event that the school put on that, I mean, I'm so excited for the upcoming years of as well.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That's kind of it's always cool to sort of hear like the spotlight of these kind of like local college traditions. I mean, I remember Christian Lanuza talked to us about the like the little buggy racing thing that goes on at Carnegie Mellon. Obviously, we here at Case have like the Hudson Relays, which is like a cross campus relay race event that's like a competition between grades. And I think that's it's a great way to sort of show that same competition and school spirit, even when it's outside of the context of athletics. And it sounds like you guys really put on a good one this year, and sounds like it'll be a great experience for you for years to come. And obviously outside of fun stuff like that and swimming and things like that, what keeps you busy in the classroom at Hamilton? What are you studying? Obviously you're only a freshman, you got 3 more years to totally lock in on what you want to do, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, so officially, we as a college commit to a major the winter of our sophomore years, but um, I plan to be pursuing neuroscience and potentially pre-med as well along that track. And I mean, the classes are as advertised. They're pretty brutal. I mean, so many hours in the classroom, in the lab, and so many hours in the library at like midnights when I guess swimming would have better swimming would have suggested that I be asleep, but just grinding out those hours studying to just cover the material. I mean, Orgo is absolutely a killer. We have our final coming up in about a week and a half. But just, I mean, I have so many people I know on the team and off the team that everyone just works together. Um, and I mean, I guess there's definitely competitive nature in terms of trying to get grades, but still just like there's always a swimmer table in the library and in the pool lounge as well. We usually get pretty good turnout uh, on school nights and especially when there's tests coming up as well. But yeah, we have an open curriculum, so I've had the opportunity as well to branch out and take some other classes. I'm taking some architecture, some film and history classes, which has just been an awesome experience.
Yeah, that does sound pretty awesome, and I have to echo the sentiment there. I think in Division 3 specifically, it is competitive, like you talked about, right? I mean, there's no doubt that everybody wants to push each other to sort of be the best in and out of the pool. But I also think that there is the benefit of having these smaller colleges, these smaller teams, is that it is collaborative. I can't tell you how many times I'm actually I was a neuroscience major as well. I ended up switching to cognitive science and kind of moving away from that pre-med concentration. But I can't say how many times, when I was a freshman or a sophomore, I was in one of those pre-med classes, people would be studying together in one of the university centers, or our version of your pool lounge is the All-American hallway, things like that. And I definitely think that speaks volumes to sort of, the kind of team that you have over there at Hamilton, right? That you'll get a lot of people out in the pool lounge on a weeknight, even when there might be practice the next morning, grinding some neuroscience. So that's awesome to hear, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like I've already had lab partners in the swim team. I've had um, just so many people to collaborate with, and it's absolutely the D3 experience where um, you're forced to put all your energy into everything that you value as a student athlete. It's definitely um, an excellent experience to continue to value academics so highly while still competing at a high level. I mean, just to see the turnout at nationals was incredible from so many awesome schools with so many awesome athletes was just like incredible.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it is one of those unique situations where you get people who are, arguably even, more accomplished outside of the pool academically than they are in the pool. And that's saying a lot when you factor in the environment that you guys are in, right? In Greensboro. I mean, there's guys like Derek, overplayed as it may be, as a medical school student athlete with a near perfect GPA, near perfect MCAT, right? Still winning events and nationals. There's guys like you who are neuroscience majors coming in and dropping time, nearly winning the 200 free at nationals. I mean, that's just like obviously an awesome environment to be in. And I got to say, you've spoke really glowingly about Hamilton, about the team so far. You kind of mentioned that in the macro, right? This has really surpassed any expectations that you could have had coming in. And you said that school's obviously a bit of an adjustment. I think it was for all of us, but if you had to sort of say, what do you think about the swimming piece of it? I mean, obviously, you dropped a lot of time. Has the training really exceeded your expectations? I mean, this is one thing that I really like to personally highlight as people come on the podcast and say, you know what, I feel like I'm getting just as good a training here in Division III, just as good of opportunities, facilities as I would, had I gone Division I, right? Which was obviously an opportunity for most all of us as well. What do you think of that piece? Do you think that has been something that you've been able to take advantage of at Hamilton?
Yeah, absolutely. We have great facilities here. Our pool is this is the first full season we've had access to it. So just like the quality of the equipment here is amazing. Um, the athletic training staff as well is great. I mean, about halfway through the season, uh, I got bicep tendonitis. It wasn't incredibly severe, but it was something that took me out of regular training for a little while, and uh, it was scary to see the first time, especially as practices and as lifts definitely ramped up in higher intensity than I had seen in high school. And it was definitely probably some of those nights in the library where I wasn't as rested as I would have liked to have been. But just a little injury for a few days getting me out of the pool. It just ended up with some kick sets and some vertical kick days to stay in shape. But um, the support from all the staff, um, both coaches and training staff, was incredible. I mean, just cupping and ultrasound and mark proing um, really was incredible to have the facilities and the equipment to so quickly recover from something that kind of temporarily prevented me from training at the highest intensity I could.
I was gonna ask you this, right? You set the bar incredibly high for like aspiring freshman this year with your, absolutely ridiculous improvement curve. How do you plan on either matching that or surpassing that, in following years to come? What's your plan? What's your plan to keep improving?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely going to be difficult, but that's kind of the point after all. I mean, I figured out. I mentioned like halfway through the season when I realized that like it's really every moment where like pushing as much as possible is going to yield the strongest results. I mean, obviously, as long as I get that recovery as well, but it's just going to the extreme. It's putting all of the effort in. It's still getting all the rest, and it's really focusing because the atmosphere has just been absolutely electric all year. I mean, it's just a step up from high school. Absolutely. I guess high school is kind of a point in time when like people's parents kind of still have influence over what they do in their lives. So it's still some people who put the effort in but don't plan to pursue swimming at a higher level. So it's always those hard days in high school that like there's some pushback from the swimmers, or at least there was in my team, which just kind of led to a less effective training environment. And here, I mean, everybody's absolutely here because they choose to be. And it's still those days when the set is difficult and when it's snowing or when it's raining out and everyone feels a little bit off. It's just keeping that high energy that's just been so important. And just that improvement over my training in the past has been just so much fun to be continuing with this group of swimmers.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a testament, I think, again, to the overall benefits of Division III, right? I mean, we come on here and talk about like the love for the game that, people have that choose to pursue it in Division III. And while it may sound, sort of overplayed or cliche, the absence of, things like athletic scholarships that keep you basically tied to a sport or a school certainly does, really increase the number of people that come and do Division III and are kind of doing it for themselves to improve. And like you said, there's not going to be people that push back on hard days, things like that, because we're all here to get better at the end of the day. And kind of you alluded to this a little bit when you were just talking and sort of said like how much more difficult and like how this training has really helped you advance a lot. I'm curious, obviously, on in the broader sense, right? That college training is usually better than high school training. But what for you has really, been like those micro improvements that have helped you a lot in college? Would you say it's just generally harder? Is it more focused? I know you sort of moved a little bit more to the sprinty side of things this year. Was it weightlifting that helped you? What do you think some of these things could be that could attribute to your success?
Yeah, definitely. It's a combination of the more intentional training for the sprint group and freestyle as well. Just putting that time in a lot more intentional training, as well as definitely the higher intensity, the more fleshed out weightlifting routines and dry lands as well, has just been awesome to have here and awesome in its effects on mine and on a lot of other freshmen's performance this year. I think almost we've had a significant amount of lifetime bests. I think that one of my favorite events, the 50 free, we now have I think 3 guys who went under the school record as of what it was in October. So it's just that, I mean, just back to the environment, that's incredible. It's everyone's putting in the effort to get those names on the board and to beat everyone else to the wall to get those relay spots. I mean, it's incredible. On my high school, during high school, my club team didn't have enough guys in the travel roster for consistent relays. So it's this year, like training relay starts a lot harder, even though I ended up leading off on a majority of the relays I did, just to have that environment where it's just going for all the points we can really get when it comes down to championships and at dual meets.
Yeah, I think that is obviously a great environment to train in, and I completely agree with you on the aspect of intentional training. I mean, it's hard. Obviously, you come from a smaller club. I'm kind of the opposite. I come from a much larger club, where you're kind of training to almost a one size fits all, training plan, right? You're pounding the yardage, or at least the club that I came from, I always was, and focusing on those longer events, things like that. I think college has sort of given me the space to focus, like you said, more on those intentional aspects of training, maybe things that you specifically need to work on to improve. And I think that's, why you really see a lot of guys come in here and really just take off right away. And sort of back to your point about, the team environment, you want to shout out any of your teammates. We always like to kind of include this segment at the end, any of your coaches, teammates who would have sort of contributed to your success this year. I know, maybe back to that story on training trip, who was the guy that you were racing against that one practice. We want to hear about the guys on Hamilton who sort of pushed you to this next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Some sprint guys in the team who've been incredible influences. I'll have to, I guess, shout out the whole relay we had because it was the same four guys. But in that Florida training trip, that was Henry Weimeyer. He's definitely, I mean, he's like 6'8". He's got size on me, so it's just coming back, focusing. We both played our advantages when it comes to sprints, and just like racing against him is always incredible. Alex Vasquez is another freshman here who ended up taking away the 50 free record for me a heat before I swam it at NESCACs. So that was just incredible. Just such a fun experience where, I mean, the energy was so high in the pool deck cheering, seeing him touch the wall, take that record away from me. And I had to get back up later and swim the 50 free again. But he's incredible. And that's just been awesome to train with him here for the last year. And then Ben Howell, I guess, is the last guy in our relay. He's a senior. He's graduating pretty soon. But just to have like his influence, his support over the team, where like it sounds like this was the season he took most seriously out of his entire time here, and just to have, I guess, his guidance and his oversight over training, and like just a more experienced swimmer to talk to has been incredible over the last season, I guess.
Yeah, one last question for you, Nathaniel. I know you mentioned you're, trying to train for trials here, and so, hopefully I get to see you there. But is there anywhere else, we might be able to see you this long course summer?
Yeah, so my training schedule isn't incredibly fleshed out right now. I'm still looking for specifically what club team to go back to when I return home over the summer. But meet specifically, the roster is pretty non-specific right now. There's a couple meets I'm looking at, but nothing planned specifically besides, I guess, Connecticut Senior Championships again, going back to that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're looking forward to seeing you compete. Obviously, I know you were, sort of painstakingly close at the D3 time trial, just zero point 0.7 seconds off that cut and the 100. So we're hoping to see you compete at Indy, but if not, obviously you got 4 more years, and maybe 2028 can be on the horizons for you, especially if you keep improving at this rate. But in any case, Nathaniel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. We're so excited to see what you do in the future at Hamilton College. And from what you've told us, it seems like, you guys as a team have a great future going forward. We did some special things on those relays this year, broke a lot of school records. And, we'll obviously be keeping an eye out for you. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, man. It's been really great getting to know you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you guys, and I look forward to watching more of your podcasts come out in the future, and hopefully seeing you guys again on the pool deck when it comes down to other championship meets. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you. And of course, it was a pleasure seeing you in person this year at NCAA's. You swam great, and hopefully we'll be seeing you at the top of the podium next year when we're back on deck. So this has been another episode of the Anchor Leg Podcast. Thanks again, listeners. It's been a great one with Nathaniel Taft, and we'll catch you next time.